OmniStitch, the innovative embellishment machine that will transform your original designs into designer originals. The OmniStitch will change the way you sew, quilt, and embroider. Using the patented OmniStitch process, knitting yarns, specialty threads, braid, lace, ribbon, even strips of fabric can be transformed into new textures. This video will show you how to set up and use your OmniStitch right away. You'll also learn how to use each of the available attachments for different effects. We'll go through 1. Setting up the machine, 2. Feed fingers, 3. Cord fingers, 4. Flat feed folders, 5. Sequin placing, 6. Pressure dial and presser foot height, 7. Caring for your machine, and 8. Information. Each section of the video has the section number in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, so you can quickly find any part of the tape viewing and fast forward. The OmniStitch OS-1000 is a semi-industrial model for home or cottage industry use. Notice there are no feed dogs to control fabric movement. Instead, the OmniStitch uses a freehand movement and can work with or without the attachments. For example, basic quilting. You can move the fabric randomly or follow pre-stenciled lines. Using the attachments, your OmniStitch applies trim through an overfeed process called couching. Your machine came with one or more of the attachments you see. All of them are available directly from SCS. The unique OmniStitch system has the needle catch the trim off the attachment and carry it to the top of the fabric. Each time the needle comes up and catches the trim, a loop is formed. A series of these loops repeated creates the overfeed or couching effect, one of the many made possible with the OmniStitch. Let's start by setting up the machine. First, you'll need to wind thread onto the bobbin. Place the bobbin on the bobbin winder spindle and place the thread spool on the spool pin. Guide the thread around the tension guide. Insert the thread through a hole in the bobbin from inside out and depress the bobbin winder assembly. We recommend using a long staple cotton or polyester thread in the bobbin case. Hold the outside of the hand wheel and turn the clutch counterclockwise until it's loose. Hold the end of the thread and depress the foot control until the bobbin is full. Tighten the clutch by turning it clockwise. Insert the bobbin into the bobbin case with the thread on top. Then pull the thread into the slot and into the delivery eye. Advance the thread so the bobbin moves clockwise. To check the tension, hold the bobbin case by the tail end. If the bobbin case drops, tighten the tension by turning this small screw clockwise. No additional thread should come out of the bobbin case. Insert the bobbin and bobbin case into the machine, holding the safety latch out. And close the slide plate. We recommend using a size 25 monofilament thread through the needle for its strength. However, you can use good quality regular sewing machine thread that matches the color of your trim. Remove the net from the bottom of the spool. Cover the spool with the net. Place the spool on the thread stand and pull the thread up and through the thread guide. Begin threading the machine by passing the thread through this guide marked in pink. Guide the thread down between the two silver discs in the thread tension assembly. Put the thread behind this post and through the check spring. Give the thread a tug. Pass the thread through the take-up lever and snap it into the two thread guides. Thread the needle left to right. Finally, pass the thread back down through the presser foot. Then take one stitch to bring the thread up out of the bobbin. The feed fingers will couch round trims, such as yarn, knit threads, metallic, and pearl cotton. 10 inches of a round diameter trim will equal about 1 inch of couching. The trim applied to these samples with the feed finger is called Omni Rayon and Omni Metallic. They are two of the many threads made specially for your OmniStitch. Feed fingers come in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. The size of the feed finger opening should closely match the diameter of the trim. To attach the small feed finger, begin by lowering the needle. With the groove facing up, slide the feed finger all the way up against the machine and on the left side of the yarn guide. Center the feed finger against the needle, then tighten the positioning screws with an Allen wrench. The needle should strike just above the eye of the feed finger. If it doesn't, this means the spring steel needs to be adjusted. Take off the small feed finger and bend it slightly. If you have trim that doesn't come on a spool, thread the end through the hole on the clip accessory. Or lay it on the inside to keep the end from falling off. For spools, thread the feed finger by placing your trim on the yarn bar. Secure the end with a clip accessory if desired. Using a threader, insert the end of the trim through this hole on the thread guide. Then in and out through the holes of the feed finger. Through the feed finger eye, and finally under the presser foot. For appliques, secure the ends by sewing a few stitches. Move the free end in front of the needle and continue sewing. To lock the stitch at the end, move the feed finger over and depress the foot pedal for a few locking stitches. When monogramming fabrics that are sheer, knitted, or slippery, use a stabilizer underneath, such as stitch and tear, tearaway, or freezer paper. After outlining your monogram onto a stabilizer or paper, secure it to the fabric. And move the fabric to fill in the open area. Move the fabric to outline the edge of the design. Then use short back and forth motions or small circular motions to fill in the open area. This example of sewing an embellishment off the edge of a collar is done with the small feed finger, but the technique will work with any other attachment. Start sewing on the fabric. Move slowly off the fabric while depressing the foot control. Move back to the fabric again. The needle should strike the medium feed finger close to the eye on the bottom. If it doesn't, as shown before, bend the feed finger slightly until the needle strikes this position. Using trim about the size of baby yarn, move the fabric to outline or fill in the areas you want. The needle should strike the large feed finger just below the eye. If it doesn't, bend it slightly until the strike point is here. Using a thicker diameter yarn, outline or fill in the area you want. The cord finger will sew cord to fabric while retaining its original shape. There are two sizes of cord fingers, one for 2.5 millimeter and one for 3.5 millimeter cord. Remember to always insert a cord finger with the scoop on the end facing up. To thread the small cord finger, pull the cord through the yarn guide, in and out through the holes on the cord finger, through the cord finger eye, and under the presser foot. Move your fabric to follow an outline. With the large cord finger, it's sometimes helpful to fray the end of the cord so it will more easily fit through the eye of the cord finger. Move your fabric to follow an outline. With a flat feed folder, the OmniStitch quickly and easily couches and applies flat trim, such as lace, ribbon, braid, and fabric strips. Flat feed folders are available in 4 sizes: 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and open end for trim wider than 1 inch. Match the width of the flat feed folder to the width of the flat trim you're using. To attach a flat feed folder, remove the screw and take off the presser foot. Lower the needle. With the flat feed folder facing up, insert the fork part all the way up between the machine and the thread guide. Tighten slightly with an Allen wrench. Decide if you want to sew near the edge or towards the center of the flat trim. Position the flat feed folder, then tighten the screws with an Allen wrench. Here's an example of sewing near the edge and sewing in the center. To thread the flat feed folder, use the threader or cut the end of the flat trim at an angle. Insert it into the slot on the thread guide, then down through the flat feed folder opening. The thickness of the couching will be determined by how fast you move the fabric, combined with how much pressure you put on the foot pedal. The slower you move the fabric and the faster you run the machine, the thicker the couching, due to more stitches per inch. The faster you move the fabric and the slower you run the machine, the thinner the couching, due to fewer stitches per inch. The amount of flat trim required for your project will vary between 2 to 4 times the length of fabric to be covered. The strike point of the needle will help determine how much the trim is couched. If you want no couching, so that the trim is sewn flat, bend the flat feed folder until the needle hits just at the tip. To couch the trim, the needle must hit the flat feed folder in the center. This is achieved by bending the flat feed folder until the needle is positioned here. The smallest of the flat feed folders is the 1/4 inch. Here's how you use it to make bows. Secure the edge of the flat trim by placing it under the flat feed folder before beginning to sew. Now sew a few stitches. Cut off the protruding end and continue sewing to the point where you want the bow to be. Stop with the needle out of the fabric, pull out enough trim for the bow, then continue sewing to the point where you want your next bow. 1 or 2 layers of flat trim can be used. We've chosen to use 2. When you're finished, the loops can be left as is or tacked in the center. The texture of the trim affects the couching appearance. Here we have a 1/4-inch braid with a loosely woven texture. Given slack off the spool, the OmniStitch gives an explosion effect to the braid. The next size flat feed folder is the 1/2 inch, which uses 1/2 inch ribbon. We'll demonstrate making rosettes, which can be used as accents for clothing, corsages, barrettes, earrings, shoe clips, or package decorations. Start on the outer edge of the rosette. Work in a circular manner by turning your fabric counterclockwise. Stop the machine when the needle reaches the beginning point of the first circle. Cut the end of the ribbon off and continue sewing by moving your fabric counterclockwise. When you reach the center, cut off the end of the ribbon and continue sewing slowly until the raw end is completely encased in the center of the rosette. If you want to detach the rosette to use on another surface, simply cut away the backing. Here's how to use the 1-inch flat feed folder to put lace on socks. Position the underside of the sock cuff against the machine. Hold the ends of both threads to begin. Stretch the sock and sew while moving the sock, then stop, stretch, and sew. Secure the end by moving the flat feed folder over and sew a few stitches in place. If you want ties, leave tails at the beginning and end of your sewing. The open-end flat feed folder is open on one edge, so you can use trim wider than 1 inch. Insert the trim from the back side. Guide the edge against the folder with your right hand as you sew. The open-end flat feed folder can also be used for dual omni-stitching. Here we're using a flat lace on top of a wider trim. Insert both edges into the open edge of the flat feed folder. While you're sewing, keep both edges together with your right hand. The sequin placer lets you add glamour to any garment. When using it, we recommend a size 16 or smaller needle. Insert the sequin placer into the machine and tighten just enough to hold it in place. Our sequin placer uses 6mm sequins. Pull off a few from the end of the strand. Insert the strand through the slot on the fabric guide, and using your threader, into the eye of the sequin placer. The fiber should be facing you, the sequins facing away from you. Position the sequin placer until the needle catches the fiber. Then tighten the screw with an Allen wrench. Sew by moving the fabric while the needle catches the fiber. The OmniStitch sews the fiber underneath the sequins to the fabric. Setting the pressure dial and adjusting the presser foot height. The normal position of the pressure dial is all the way up. Release it by pushing on the outer ring. The presser foot can be raised for thick quilting without using attachments. First, make sure the needle is in its lowest position. Then, take off the side plate with an Allen wrench. Loosen the black screw. Now the presser foot can be raised. A height of 1/4 inch is recommended for thick quilting. To determine the height for normal sewing, place the fork end of an attachment around the needle, against the bed of the machine. Position the presser foot so it touches the attachment but still allows the attachment to be moved. Tighten the black screw and replace the side plate. To keep your machine running smoothly, it's important that you oil the machine regularly and change needles when recommended. Change a needle after 8 to 10 hours of actual machine use. Loosen the screw on the bar. Remove the old needle. Then insert a new needle all the way up with the scarf or indent facing to the right. Use this chart to select the correct needle size. Sequin placer, size 16 and smaller. Basic quilting, size 18 and smaller. Sheer fabrics and knits, size 18. Average sewing, size 20. Heavy tapestries and carpeting, sizes 22 and 24. For needle size 18 and smaller, use needle system 134R. For needle size 20 and larger, use needle system 16 by 231. Oil your OmniStitch after every 8 to 10 hours of use, and always use sewing machine oil. Put 1 drop in each of the 5 openings marked in red on top of the machine. Unplug the foot control. Tilt the machine back and turn the hand wheel towards you until you can see where the connections are. Put 1 or 2 drops on these connections. And around the hook area. After oiling, run the unthreaded machine for several minutes with a scrap of fabric underneath the needle to absorb the excess oil. Be sure to wipe away any excess oil from the top of the machine. Now that you've seen what each of the attachments can do, you've probably already thought of a dozen projects for your OmniStitch. You have a whole new world of sewing creativity to explore. You can find ideas and patterns for the OmniStitch from iron-on transfers, applique patterns, embroidery books, magazines, even children's coloring books. This video has been referenced for you to shuttle through and find any of the sections easily. Just look for the symbol in the corner of the screen. All of the OmniStitch attachments and notions you've seen can be ordered from Sewing Center Supply. Call 1-800-542-4727 to place an order or to request a Parts and Notions catalog. If you have a question about your OmniStitch that is not covered in this video, call our 800 number or write to us at the following address: OmniStitch, SCS USA Inc., 9631 Northeast Colfax, Portland, Oregon 97220, USA.